different Microsoft 365 services. And I would like to welcome everyone for joining today's session. It's really nice having everyone join today from the beginning from the beginning of the session since January or February. Thank you so much. So today we'll be going into the continuation from where we stopped last week about introduction for OneDrive for Business. It's actually our interactive section. So if you have a question, feel free to drop in the chat window or raise up your hands, and our trainer is on the call to actually help us to answer those questions. So thank you for joining once again. So today we're going to just introduce myself. My name is Emmanuel Itoje. I'm an IT professional, experienced in infrastructure, cloud services, productivity applications, with focus on enabling business use technologies to optimize organization strategy. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also an enterprise admin engineer, Teams voice engineer, identity and access administrator, Azure security engineer, and Azure solution architect. So we are happy to have you today on the call. So I'll be your host today. So in today's our housekeeping rule remains the same. The recording for this session will be made available. It's going to be available for future viewing. So on our YouTube channel, all our recordings are uploaded there. And if you're not talking, please let's endeavor to actually have a mic on mute. If you're not talking, and if you have any question, like I said, feel free to pin down your questions in the Q&A session, or you just drop it on the chat, and it will be attended to. We have a Twitter account at ngm365. You can follow us there to get updates. Then please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get updates. Turn on your notifications whenever we drop a new video. It will be made available there. Then we have a feedback form in case you're just training us and you like to give a feedback about the session. So feel free to drop the feedback, and this will actually help us to improve, or the areas that we need to improve. We'll appreciate your feedback. So today I have the honor to actually introduce our trainer again today, in person of Oluwadamilola. So he's actually a SharePoint online subject matter expert and a SharePoint online consultant. He's a highly skilled SharePoint online specialist with over 6 years of experience in designing, developing, and implementing SharePoint-based solutions to meet specific business requirements. And not only that, he's also a technical business analyst who focuses on actually Microsoft Workspace. So we are actually happy to have Olu join us today again. Olu, thank you for joining us today. Really nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel.
So please, you have the floor.
All right. Good afternoon, good day, everyone, respective of our location. For those of us that were here last week, we started with the introduction to OneDrive for Business. We went through the key features, the licensing options, comparing the licensing options as well. We compared them, and how do you go about choosing the right plan for your organization, and we were able to round off. So I don't know if there's anybody in this session at the moment that was part of last week um session that have concerns, then probably the person was unable to share last week, and probably since this is an interactive section, we can just start ahead with concerns. If there's any concerns that we need to clarify, or any questions we needs clarification, we can start with that before moving on to today. Will be more hands-on on some other things, probably more from administrative perspective. I believe from an end user perspective, we tried covering that last week, so probably we just go delve on administrative perspective today. But before then, do we have any questions?
Guys, please, if you have any question, feel free to raise up your hands, or if you want to drop in the chat,
Oh,
feel
they
free
can,
to
yeah,
use the chat.
probably if anybody has, they can drop in the chat. So we can move on. I would share my screen, and I will just show some things from administrative perspective. Just a moment. I believe we can all see my screen, please.
Yes, you can say it.
All right. Okay, so I remembered last week when we had this session. For the sake of those who might not be, I'll just go briefly. uh, So we talked about is each sections of what the OneDrive for business looks like. When you log into your office portal, let me just go back again real quick. When you log into your office portal, you have you are presented with a view that is similar like this. And for you to quickly head over to your OneDrive for business, all you need to do is to click on the OneDrive app from here. As long as you're a licensed user, you should see that if it's not hidden in your organization. So that's one of the first thing. So you are presented with the home landing page. This is like a landing page. And what you see in here are just your recently worked files from every area of M365. The files could be files that were shared with you. It could be a file that resides in SharePoint. It could be a file that is in OneDrive. So basically, just for you to get to those files, it could be Word, it could be Excel, it could be a video, it could be PowerPoint, it could be anything. So that's just the essence of the landing page home. For files that are strictly stored in your OneDrive, you see them on my file sections. So basically, this is where you see all your files you've created, and some other thing. So the shared files that were shared with you can also see the ones you've shared with people, and you can review that. Yeah, your favorite. There's an option for you to favorite each file. So technically, the use case would be for you to have easy access to those files because those files could reside in other 365 apps, as you can see here. So it could be other 360 Office 365 apps, or it could still be files from your OneDrive. And yeah, you have your recycle bin. I mentioned this last week as well. This is the first stage, and also there is the second stage. Anything deleted from here manually goes into the second stage, and you can still restore. Now, the total period of the recycle period is 93 days in total. So if anything is deleted within 93 days, you should still be able to recover them from your own end. Um, if it's permanently deleted, you only have an option to restore from Microsoft ends a 14-day window from the last day, from that very day of when it was permanently deleted. Excuse me. Now you have your quick access. Quick access is just your shared libraries. They are all SharePoint. Yeah, and these two ones means that they are pinned. Maybe you pin them for you to easily access them. So basically, we went through all this. So that's just a run overview. Okay, I think something I would like to show, which we didn't talk about, is let's talk about sharing. So now, if you are trying to share any of your files from your OneDrive, so you can share externally, you can share internally, depending on what you want to do. But we might need to talk about these sharing options. Now, if you share, anyone means anonymous link. What it means is if you share any file using this option, the person does not need to sign in to access the file. As long as anybody gets hold of this link, they can access the folder or the file which you've created the link on. That's one. You can add additional security measures. For example, okay, you want to share anyone with a link, but you want it to be a view only. You can do that. You want to share anyone with a link, but you want to create a password. You want to set a password. So even though the person has the link, you still have to provide them with this password for the person to be able to access the file or the folder or anything that you've shared. Or you want to share and you want to decide to block download, to limit download on that file. So you can do that as well on this anonymous link. This is another link option. It's people in Versa. So the tenant I'm using is called Versa. So it says people in Versa. So basically what this means is people within your organization, internal users. So now if you select this option and you share, Even though I've shared with Emmanuel, for example, if Emmanuel is in my organization, I've shared with him. If any other user stumbles upon that link, because that person is an internal user as well, that link would work for them, even though I might have specified only Emmanuel's link. Yeah, so that's what this would do. It gives everybody in the organization access. Or we also have people with existing access. So most times this is used in a situation whereby people already have access to the folder, to the file, but probably they've lost the link or something. You can easily regenerate a link for them. However, it will only work for people who are permissioned on that item. It doesn't work for a new for a new for a new for a new user. It's only going to work for people who already has permission. Now, people you choose is like the one you use for external users majorly. So if I'm trying to share with someone who is not in this tenant and I've not shared, or okay, it's like a secure link. Let's put it that way. Not only external user. So if you are trying to create a secure link for a specific person, that's when you use this option. So what that means is I share if I share this and I type Emmanuel's name, for example, it can only work for Emmanuel. It's not going to work for any other user. So that's basically what. So it's only anyone who you've specified that this link would work for. If that person is not specified within this link, then it's not going to work for them. Same thing, you can decide if it's going to be edit, if it's going to be view, you can do that. And also you can decide to block or allow download. I don't know if you have any questions regarding this sharing policy I just talked about now. Okay, we'll move on. So yeah, and you could decide to yeah, most times when you do a share, if I do a share, yeah, and if I do people you choose and I put a name of a particular user, yeah, most times what it does is it sends a link to that user as an email. I would show you what that looks like by the time the user receives the sharing location notification. So this is the user I've shared with. Then I'll just head over to Outlook real quick. Then the user should get a notification shortly. Just a moment. Okay, probably we'll check on that later. I don't know. Might be okay. Yeah, there we go. So it comes something like this, notifying you that somebody has shared a particular link to you. So another option which people use is if you still go back to the share, there is a particular option here that says share in Outlook. Now it's still the same in the sense that what it does is let's open it a moment. So what it does is it puts the link. So the share link which was received by this user, which is embedded in this open, the share link. So rather than it coming this way, notifying you this way, probably if you have your custom email you want to attach with it, then you can use the share in Outlook. Now this is different from attachment because if you access this link, it's still a sharing link, it's still linked to the original file. So if the recipient access this link and perform updates on the file or anything, it's still reflecting the original location, right? So where it's different from you doing an attachment is that attachment is you are attaching a copy of that file. So whatever you do on a copy does not, you've created this separate file entirely. So whatever you do on a copy would not reflect on the original location in here. So that's just to talk about that. However, what determines a sharing options. This is user end now. So what determines the sharing option a user gets at this level depends on what you've set as an administrator on your admin end. So if you go to your SharePoint admin center and you go to your policies and you go to the sharing. So over here is what controls. So this is your organization sharing settings. So if your organization does not allow anonymous, if it's here, then it means that users will not be able to see anonymous sharing option. So I've saved this. It's on new and existing. If I go back to my OneDrive, this will be grayed out. So let me just refresh real quick. So if we try to share again now, and we try to now, it's not available for me to do again. So what controls what a user can do? The container that controls that is what you have on your organization sharing settings. So another thing is, even if your organization allows it, right, you can still limit probably sharing to some specific domain. You can limit sharing to specific people. So you only want to allow maybe the group of executives to be able to share using this anonymous option, right? So it means if there's any user that is not part of any security group you're adding in here. So I would say let me just do a sample. So in this security group belongs my admin account, which is this one. So it means with this user would be able to share anonymously. This user can, but I have a test user here who is not part of that group. Now, if this user tries to share anonymously, the option will be grayed out for him. So it depends on the use case. What determines what you set depends on the organization wants requirements. Let's put it that way, technical requirements. So that will determine what you need to set up. So all this can be done from the administrative point. Also, guest users must sign with the same account. However, whatever you do in here is not limited to OneDrive. Let me state that whatever you're doing in here affects both SharePoint and OneDrive. The only thing that's separate to each of them is this bar. However, you cannot limit SharePoint. I cannot have SharePoint at existing guest and I say I want to put OneDrive at anyone. It's not possible. So it's either they're on the same level or SharePoint is on the most permissive level. You cannot have OneDrive sharing level above SharePoint. That's not possible. So yeah, you will need to be aware of that. A couple of more things you can do in here. So basically, this section is talking about the default link option. So what that means is if I decide that I want to share anything from, like I said, from OneDrive, from SharePoint, what is the default? Now, at the moment, you are not seeing the link option this guy is going to use for the sharing, right? That's because there is a pre-selected one, which is people within the organization. So you might want to set that what should be the default option that gets selected by default. So that's where this come into play. So it's already on people within your organization. That's why we have the option. You could decide to set it to these. You could decide to set it to these. Anyone. It doesn't matter. Again, it depends on what the organization requirement is. Also, you can decide to choose the default sharing link option. If it's view, if it's edit, whichever one. Then you can, for anonymous links, you can decide when those links expire. So because if you don't set it, it might not get to expire. So you might decide to set, oh, okay, I want any anonymous link generated should expire within 1 or 2 days. Then you can decide which kind of permission should anonymous links give. So you can play around. For files, it's view and edit. For folders, view, edit, and upload. Then these are just other settings depending on what you want to achieve that can be toggled off or on, or whichever way. Then also, yeah, also I want to talk about one feature. Yeah, so there's a request file feature. Request files feature here. So basically, this is so let's say a sample use case would be probably you want to create a folder for external users to upload. I don't know, depending on what they want to upload. So the request file works as it can be accessed by anyone. You don't need any login for it. So if I create let me just create a test folder here, and let's see how it looks. So if you create a test folder, and on the test folder, I will just click on this guy, request files. So I'll just put the description. I can say upload your CV or something. So you can decide to send it to people. You can put in their email addresses, or you could copy the link. So I've copied the link now. Then I would go into a private browser, yeah, and paste the link there. You would see that the link is accessible without me putting any signing in with any account. So what this requires you to do is upload whatever you want to upload, whatever the use case is. So for this one, I can decide to upload anything. So now because it's anonymous, and the person who has asked you to upload probably needs to identify your upload, needs to tie it to your name or something. So you might just need to put your name in here. So it's then you do your upload. So that's done. Now, as the person who has created this link and has shared it, if I open the test folder, then I see that particular, this is the upload. So you can see modified by just guest contributor, but in here in the file name, it has appended the 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 first name and the last name, so I can know who uploaded this particular file. So this can be used in getting maybe clients upload. You don't want to give them access to your environment. You just want them to upload some particular files. So however, the request for the option, so for you to see this option on a particular folder, it depends on the settings here. If I turn this to view and I say this, if I just change any of these options and I save, we can now control it with PowerShell now, though, but previously it was controlled by those guys there. And if I come back now, I might need to give it a little more time. It's still showing, but basically your sharing settings controls. Yeah. So if you look at I don't have it again. I don't have the request file option showing again for me. So in a case whereby you don't have the request file showing up on your end, you just need to ensure that your file access and your folder access are set this way. That's the only case whereby you'll be able to see them, or use a PowerShell that it has a particular command to enable that. Yep. So on the administrative level, or what you can do on the web, yeah, I think we've covered that. Just a moment. Then if we just want to take a look more at yeah, last week we were able to go through these as well, the retention, the sync. Okay, so let me just talk more about the sync. So regarding the sync, you can also decide that probably you don't want users to sync their the OneDrive or business files on their personal PC. Probably you want the sync to be limited only to the work PC. So what you can do there is to enable this option that allows syncing on specific on domain joined devices. Now, what we need now when we are when most people try to do this, they try to use this option and they copy their Azure AD domain. It doesn't work with Azure AD domain. It's your Active Directory, the local one that it works with. So if your devices are Azure AD domain joined, then you might need to use conditional access policy rather than this option. This option would work for your local AD. Also, you want to block sync of specific file type, such as executable files, exe, and some other file type. Now, when you do this, it doesn't mean that if I go to my OneDrive and I click on the and I try to upload, I click on the upload button, it doesn't mean that I won't be able to upload those files. You will be able to upload those files. What this is going to block is if you have such file on your system, and let me bring my file explorer over here real quick. Yeah. So what that means is if you have such file on your system and I want it to be synced from my system to the cloud. So that's where this policy would work. So it means it will be blocked. I won't be able to sync that particular file to the cloud from my system. So that's what that would do. So a little more settings on the classic settings page. I think there's one tricky one here, which is where your OneDrive app probably might be hidden. And if it's hidden, if I click on OK, what that means is if you go to the office portal and you click on this, then it's still showing. Then you might not get to see OneDrive. It doesn't mean you are not licensed, right? It just means that probably the admin, for one reason or the other, has decided to hide these app. Let's see. It's still showing. We'll check that later. It should get up. So also there are also questions about which I've seen, which people have asked. Okay, OneDrive has been created for my users, but I don't want them to access their OneDrive. So in the past, if you don't want them to access their OneDrive, what we advise is because you cannot just go ahead and delete OneDrive the same way you go ahead and delete your SharePoint site, right? So because the OneDrive site has been created and the profile is still active, but you don't want them to access the OneDrive. So in the past, what we do is to use a PowerShell and you change the lock state for that. Let me see if I have it anywhere around there. So okay, we'll come back to that. So for that, what you do is to lock the OneDrive. So what you just do is to change the lock state of that user or user's OneDrive site and you lock it. So I think I should have something like that in my OneDrive here. It says lock. Okay, yeah, this is it. Lock all OneDrive sites. So this is an example of the PowerShell. Basically, is how it's going to do. So it's going to be set SPO sites, lock, no access. So this is the parameter. So it locks all the OneDrive sites. Or if you want to specify those sites, you can as well specify those sites you want to lock or those users you want to lock their site. However, at the moment, there has been a new option. So I don't have I'm on E5 developer. Oh, okay, this is it. It's showing now. It doesn't show before. Okay, so this is the new option here that says restrict OneDrive access. So what this does is OneDrive will only be open to a specific group of people in a security group which you have in here. So anybody not part of that security group, even though they've been licensed and their OneDrive site exists, they won't be able to access it. When they click on the from the portal.office.com, when they click on the OneDrive app, they get an error. It doesn't open for them. No matter what you do, it doesn't open for them. So that's going to be the behavior when you when you enable these and you add this particular security group. So even though the OneDrive site has been created, yeah, it won't be. So another thing So that's for if the OneDrive site has been created. Another option is, okay, I'm going to license user, but I don't want OneDrive site created for them. Obviously, because you want them to use SharePoint for one reason or the other. And on if you're not using the standalone subscription, if you're using an enterprise subscription like this, there's really no option for you to give user. Okay, I want to give this user SharePoint subscription. I don't want to give them OneDrive subscription because they are all together. Let me show you what that means. If you go to active users, if I pick on this user for example, so what I mean by that is a moment, licenses and apps. If OneDrive is locked, you can't access anything. So there's no way you want to access anything shared. Can he access the files shared with him? Okay, so if it's what you cannot access is you cannot access OneDrive for you to access this shared tab, right? However, if a file is shared with you from any other place, as long as you can get your email, right? So like for this user who, as long as you have a mailbox to receive the notification, yeah, you can open this. Now, if I'm opening this, I'm not opening my OneDrive. If you look at this URL is for the user that shared. So this is not mine. So it's the such person will still be able to access anything that is shared for him from the email notification. Is that clear, Joseph? I hope I answered your question, Joseph. All right. Okay. I can get a response. Oh, okay. Thank you. So moving on, I was trying to show something. Okay, I remember now. Okay, so what I was trying to explain is a scenario whereby OneDrive is not created. You do not want OneDrive created for such users. So for one reason or the other, you want to give them SharePoint license, probably because you want them to do some things on SharePoint, right? And but you do not want OneDrive created for them. Now, with this kind of license, if it's not a standalone license, right? SharePoint Plan 2, as we discussed, already includes OneDrive Plan 2. I do not have a separate app here that says OneDrive for me to uncheck for this user, right? For example, if I don't want Outlook for this user, it's pretty straightforward, right? I will just go ahead and uncheck. I think there used to be Microsoft Outlook here, something like that. But for OneDrive and SharePoint, it doesn't work that way. If I uncheck, if I'm creating a new user and I don't want OneDrive created, what it means is I should not assign this license to that user, this app to that user. I need to uncheck this app. But because you want the user to have SharePoint, then you might need to enable this app for that user. So what do you do in this scenario? Now, in this scenario, what you might need to do is something called user permission. Now, this is what I mean by that. So from your SharePoint admin center, if you go to more features, yeah, I would answer your question shortly, Precious. If you go to more features and you go to user profile, there's a place where we call manage user permission. Now, what this guy do? What it does is this. Now, there's a group here. It says everyone except external user. Technically, what this means is everybody within the tenant, every internal user. That's what it means. So now the permission for them. Most of these guys are no longer in use, but the major one we still use in here is this first one. Create personal sites. I also mentioned last week personal sites are OneDrive sites. Now, if I uncheck this guy and I save and I do OK, any user I create after this action, even though I've licensed them for SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., they will not get OneDrive site created for them. Even though they are licensed, their one site will not be created. They will still they get to see the OneDrive app here, but when they click on it, it redirects to their delve page. It doesn't open OneDrive. So that's the behavior for that. So in a situation whereby you don't want OneDrive created, so what you might do is for some users, for whatever reason, the internal company want to do that, what they might need to do is to add the users here individually, add a security group that contains the user, uncheck the permission of that group to be able to create personal sites or something. And once that is done, OneDrive sites will not get created for such user. So that's another way. But in this, the first way I explained, which is the one from the access control, is if the site has been created already and you just want to restrict access to it. So for Precious, is it possible for an admin to block employees from downloading OneDrive files in an organization? Now, first thing you need to know is that every user, you are the global admin of your OneDrive site. I like saying that because I think when we say global admin, it's explanatory enough. You know that it's like a super user. So you are the owner of this guy of this site. So this is my own OneDrive site. So as a global admin, you don't have any restriction on this site, right? So there's no way for me to restrict you to do anything. But if in an organization, if an admin wants to restrict you downloading, what I can restrict you downloading on is unmanaged device. So that's where this policy comes in. If you come to access control managed device. So what I can do here is this. I can allow, at the moment, it's allowing full web access and everything. That's why. So no matter where you're accessing from, your mobile, your personal PC, which is not a company PC, anything, you can access OneDrive on it. You can access your company's M365 portal, you access your OneDrive and download stuff. But if I use this guy, allow limited access, web only access, what this means is if a device is not managed by your organization, then you can only use you can only use the web browser to access your OneDrive or SharePoint, but you won't be able to download from them. Let's see. So this is not a managed device, so I'll do this. The last one is a block access. Block access, what that means is once you are not on a company managed device and you try to access any of the resources, it tells you it tells you access denied due to organization policy or something, and you won't be able to access that resource from those devices. So one way to do that is by using conditional access policy. So this is the conditional access policy, by the way. You might not get to see this option on your test environment if you check, because it requires, I think, Azure P2 license or the E5 mobility license or something for you to be able to see the option and use this. So what this does is the moment you do this, it creates a policy on the Azure portal. Okay, I don't have my Azure portal opened. Let me see if we can get there real quick. So it creates a policy, it creates a conditional access policy in the Azure portal
Is identity.
as well.
Identity.
Identity. Oh,
Identity.
okay, yeah, it has been changed. Thank you. All right, so let's see if we can get in there and see. I see that you cannot remove. Okay, so Precious, I believe I've answered your question, right?
Yes, thank
So,
you.
all right, so I enabled the limited access for these tenants. Let's see the behavior if it has taken effect yet, so you can see what it looks like. So one of the when you use the limited access, one of the first few things you see is that there's going to be a yellow banner at the top here that indicates that you have limited access, blah blah blah, and you won't be able to download or print or something. You see that at the top. Let me just see if it's working for. Yeah, it might take a while. The last time I tried this, it took a while. But since I've enabled it, we can still keep checking. Let me just move on to. Okay, let's look at the policy in Azure. So if you search for conditional access here, you would see that if I go to policies, Okay, so you would see that the the action I did here, which was unmanaged, and for me to do allow limited access, allow limited web only access, it created these two policies here. You can see these policies are on. So that's what it does. So it's block access from any unmanaged devices, and you can review it. It affects all users. If you want to exclude some users from here, of course, you can now come here and play around that and exclude some user. And if you look at the target app, it's always going to be. So that's why it affects SharePoint and OneDrive. So one other request you might get is the fact that, okay, I don't want it to affect SharePoint. I want only OneDrive. Unfortunately, this is the this is the app that you have within Azure, that you did the cloud app that you have within Azure, that you can select that affects OneDrive. You don't have OneDrive separate as well in here. So that's also another request. Um yeah, at times it takes within 24 hours, but at times I think it depends on the workload of your tenant. I used to do these 5-10 minutes and it takes effect before. Yeah. So, but yeah, maximum within 24 hours it takes effect. Joseph, I see that you cannot remove SharePoint license from user out of the list of app with enterprise business. Could you please clarify? Yeah, I would so if you have an enterprise license, it's not even limited to enterprise. As long as your license does not stand alone, you don't get to see you don't get to see OneDrive license. How do I want to put it? Let's go back in here. Okay, so on the list of apps, if you have the business basic, you have the business premium, you have anything, you have the E5, anything, what you see in here is it's either you see SharePoint Plan 1 or SharePoint Plan 2. So if you have the business basic, business premium, and you see SharePoint Plan 1, we already know that included in the SharePoint Plan 1 is the OneDrive Plan 1. So if you don't get to see OneDrive as a listed subscription here, as a listed app here, let's put it that way, because it's already included within this SharePoint. It's like they work together. The only time you might get to see OneDrive Plan 1 or OneDrive Plan 2 is if you're using standalone OneDrive Plan 1, OneDrive Plan 2. Apart from those two, every other subscription you're using, what you would see is SharePoint Plan 1 or Plan 2. And that's what controls OneDrive app license as well. Excuse me. So it means that if you want to, if you do not want to license a user for OneDrive, you need to uncheck this guy. If you want to license them, you need to uncheck. You need to check it. And also, this subscription works hand in hand with Office for Web, because whatever anything you are creating on Office for Web, which is your Word, Excel, gets stored in your OneDrive, right? So if you're unchecking this guy, you need to uncheck this guy, because this cannot exist without the OneDrive. For example, if I try to save this, it shouldn't go. I should get an error. Yeah. So it tells you to uncheck the Office for Web as well if you want to remove the SharePoint plan too. So that's how it works. I believe I answered your question, Joseph. So okay, we've talked about, okay, then if we move over to uploading files to your OneDrive. So you could decide to upload files this way. Now, if you click on files, you cannot get to your file explorer and go and select a folder. So if you want to upload a folder, you might need to do upload folder. So it's either you do it this way, or you can easily do drag and drop. It's supported as well. I can easily pick anything from my system and drop it into OneDrive. It supports that, or we can use the sync clients. Okay, so let's talk about the sync clients real quick, and we talk about some issues before we round up. So for the sync client, basically it's I mentioned it briefly last week. Is for you to have quicker access to files that you work with regularly. So this is basically the same thing I have in my OneDrive on the web. So it's just for me to have so this is the sync client. I'm not sure. I'm not sharing that screen. Let me see. Hold on. All right. So this is the OneDrive sync client settings. So it has sync and backup. So the backup, what it does is it backs up your known folders. So the known folders are three: documents, desktop, and pictures. Those are the known folders. And what that means is if you're working on your system, anything you save inside your documents gets backed up to the cloud. You can see this is mine. Anything you save on your desktop gets backed up into the cloud, as well as pictures gets backed up into the cloud. So that's basically what the backup would do for you. So for a wider organization range, you can deploy a policy to back up all users' known folders automatically, so that yeah, if there's in a situation whereby the system is corrupted or something, they still have a backup somewhere with Microsoft to restore. You can decide to add multiple accounts for you to sync on this system. So I can add another account for me to sync, and the maximum of accounts you can add on a specific device, I think should be like 9 or so. Might need to check doc for that, but I think it's around 9. So you can add an account on only Mac device. You cannot add another account from the same organization. You can only add one account from the same organization. But on the Windows still allows me to add another one from the same organization. Then also you see the notifications in here. And yeah, every other info, OneDrive device ID, basically for troubleshooting when we need logs and everything. Then the version build for this guy. Um Advanced settings. Basically, yeah, file on demand. Okay, let me talk about file on demand real quick. So this is what file on demand does. Now, if you look at my OneDrive sync client, it has, you can see like two different icons. There are so many more icons. Oh, yeah. Now, this cloud icon, what it means is that the file is available online. Because I have internet connection right now, if I double click on the file, it tries to download within split seconds, and you'll be able to access them. So let me click on one. Okay, so if I try to open this file, within a very split seconds, it downloads and the file opens. Now at that point, the icon change, you'd see. So this is temporarily available. Now there's also another check mark, which is a very deep green check mark. So this is it. Now what this means is available locally. Now if I do not have internet connection, this kind of file will open. The cloud one will not open. If you see the cloud and the face, it just means that this has been shared. It's no issue. So it means that this one has been shared. But basically what a file on demand does is it saves space on your device, and it's it's only available when you need them. Let me show you guys something. If you go to the properties of the OneDrive folder itself, you would see size on disk, and you see size. Size is like the general storage of what has been used for your OneDrive. So the total size of everything here is like 535. Or this the size on disk, the size used on my local drive storage is 125. So that's, and the reason for this is because of the on demand. So most of the other files, they are only available when I demand them, when I need them, when I double click on them, then it downloads. Now, so that's why you can as well free up space. So if you feel the 125 gig is a probably a whole lot for your local drive storage. Yeah, you can free up space. So it means that any any files that has these temporarily available on device icon get sent out to the cloud. And also, I believe on Windows 10 and in the Windows 11, there's something called storage sense on your computer that checks for how long these files has been on the temporarily available states, and if you've not used them within a particular number of days, it automatically sends them back to the cloud. So you don't have to manually free up space maybe every week or every 2 weeks. The storage sense can help you do that. Let me just show us that for people that are not aware. Manage storage sense. Let me see if I can get that real quick. Dun, dun, dun. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Okay, turn on storage sense. Yeah, there we go. So mine is off at the moment. So this helps a lot in so you in sending one in freeing up OneDrive space over a specific period of time. So this can be configured and it helps with that. So now let's talk about few issues that might arise as a result of OneDrive. So one of the most common one is okay, I had this user exists in the organization and the user left, was terminated, you've deleted the account, and maybe after a year or two, the user came back to the organization. Yeah, you recreated with the same username. So now what happens is most cases is this is another user. Let me just put it side by side real quick so we don't get confused. Sorry. All right. A moment, guys. Sorry. Okay. So let me explain the use case, the scenario again. So this is this user, the one with the this user left the organization and was the account has been deleted over a year, but the user came back and you recreated the account with the same username. So now this is what happens. Because this guy used to share file, this guy the one in Chrome here used to share file with this guy before he left. Now when this user is back and I try to share with them again, yeah, they will get the notification that a file has been shared with them, right? But when they try to access it, most times, 90% of the time, they get access denied error. And they see that they are asked to request. They request for the file again. So it keeps coming like a loop and they never get access to the file. Even if I try to go to my Teams and send them a file over the Microsoft Teams one-on-one chat, they experience the same thing. So most cases, this is what happens. When you're trying to share a file with someone from SharePoint, OneDrive, whichever way. Now, when I'm typing this person, this is the people picker. That's what that's what this is called. Now, when I'm trying to type the name of the person, it says searching. Now, what the people picker does is it looks for that person. It's trying to get the information of this person from three places. Now, the first place is the place that is closest to this site. Same is applicable to SharePoint. Let me just state it. So what it tries to do, it tries to get that information from the user information list of this site. That's the first place. If it doesn't find the information there, it checks the M365 admin portal to see if the user, if it's an internal user, obviously it's going to exist here. Or if it's not there, it checks the Azure user list if it's a guest. Then if it's not there, then it assumes that oh, okay, this person is an external user. That's when at that point you would see where it says that this is an external account. So let's put one external account in here and say at gmail.com. So this one now, it indicates that once I send it, okay, so basically I'm just trying to explain how the people picker works. Now for this guy that is back into the organization, and the UPN has been recreated, because I've been sharing with this user before they left. When people picker checks and it sees the profile under the site user information list, it brings it up for me. So for example, if the job role has changed from engineer to director, for example, I would still be seeing engineer on my own, from my own end. I won't see director. So that's because the old profile information has been cached on my OneDrive site. And until I remove that and allow people picker to recheck for these user details from the M365 admin portal, then this user will still not have the ability to access what I'm trying to share with them. So basically, this is what the user information list looks like. There is a shorter way to navigate there, but I will just navigate using step by step. So if I go to the OneDrive settings, I go to the more settings, then I can easily go to return to the classic SharePoint settings. I go to people and groups. Yeah, you don't need to, it's a lot of steps. So basically, I just edit this URL. So there's always this guy that we append. So basically, we just append these to the OneDrive URL, and it takes you directly to where you want to go to. So this page here, it's an hidden list, and this hidden list is known as the user information list of this site. Every other site has its own. Any site that exists, OneDrive, SharePoint, they all have these list. It's it's so if I open this one now, so this is for a SharePoint site. So it has its own. So there's really no general repository that's okay. Once you do it from here, it affects everybody. No. So in the scenario which I've described, what I need to do is remove this user, delete this user from this site collection. Once the user is deleted from the site collection, then I try to share again. Once I share again, then it picks the new profile information for that user. And at that point, the user will now be able to access whatever that was shared initially. So that's one scenario. Another scenario that could happen real quick. That's one popular scenario, very popular. Another popular scenario is this user has been the user account has been deleted, and probably you needed a file, or the you needed a file from the OneDrive, or it was recreated. Then a new OneDrive gets created for the user with one at the end, but you need the user to get reconnected back to the old OneDrive URL. So this is now very easy now, whereby there is a self-diagnostic that you can run from the admin portal that reconnects. Once you just click on the build up and support, I think you just need to type in here OneDrive user mismatch. Uh, oh, let me just say OneDrive mismatch. So it should come up with a self-diagnostic that can be okay. So we can click on this guy from here. Yeah. So this is the diagnostic. So with these diagnostics, it fixes that issue whereby the user is unable to access the old OneDrive URL after it has been deleted. That's another popular scenario. Yeah. So it comes up with the diagnostic now. Real quick, a moment. Yeah, so just put the URL of the OneDrive site, the UPN on the user, it runs the test and it fixes the issue as well. So that's another popular scenario. What else? I think everything else. I think the last thing I would just say is what I needs to be aware of is the limitation of OneDrive. So there are. So sorry, guys. Don't know why I have to do this. Oh, okay.
Maybe you should use the Edge browser.
Let me try. Thank you. Okay. All right. So probably I'll just drop the chart. So limitation, the invalid character, the invalid file names, the limits, the upload limits, the download limits, file path length, file names. So every limit you can think of in terms of using the OneDrive and SharePoint is covered in here, as well as the OneDrive sync client as well. So let me drop that in the chat. Are we inputting the URL of the, okay, sorry, Joseph, I'm just saying this. So it says, are we inputting the URL of the old OneDrive sites or the new sites in the diagnostic? You put the old one, the normal one, the one without the one. That's the one you input, please, in the diagnostic. So I think with that, we might have come to the end of today's session. And I think one takeaway that I've always seen that that applies to me personally is that you might not get the full grasp of everything discussed so far, but as you use the platform daily or as you use the platform frequently, then you get accustomed to some things, and it helps understanding as well. So that's all from me. I don't know if we have any questions, concerns.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. This is a wonderful session. Guys, if you have questions for trainer, please go ahead with your questions. You have questions? All right. In the answers of no questions, we're going to be rounding up for today's meetup. So next week, so this today is the end of OneDrive. So if you have more questions in the future, you can always reach out to our trainer. Let me drop his LinkedIn handle
Yeah,
if you want
LinkedIn.
to
Yeah,
in case you want to connect with him. If you have questions, feel free to ask a question, and also on the chat as well. In our community chat, you can always ask a question there. So by next week we'll be starting with Microsoft Teams. So we're moving to a different workload entirely. So Microsoft Teams is going to take us a very long journey. So it's going to take us a long journey, unlike OneDrive. Yeah. So I look forward to meeting everybody, connecting next week for Teams. It's going to it promise to be awesome actually, because we have a lot of Teams SME that will be coming into to take us through from being a novice to an expert, being a Teams voice expert for the Microsoft Teams workload. So I've dropped in the chat window the link to connect with Damilola, so you can connect with him. And if you have questions, feel free to ask him, and also drop your questions in the WhatsApp group. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. I look forward to meeting you next week. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Damilola, for
Thank
doing this with
you.
us.
Bye,
Really
Dami.
appreciate
Thank
it.
Bye.
you. Thank you, everyone.